Last time I talked about NASCAR, I briefly mentioned the long-lasting sponsorship contract between Joe Gibbs Racing and Interstate Batteries. It's been a staple at JGR since their first race in 1992, starting on their flagship car, the number 18. You've seen the sign at your local battery store, and you've seen the M&M commercials. The JGR 18 is one of the most historic cars in recent NASCAR history. One with stories of growth, triumph, heartbreak, and controversies. 4 primary drivers, 3 manufacturers, over 75 wins, and 3 championships. This is the legacy of the Joe Gibbs Racing 18 car.
Was much faster than Junior. As a matter of fact, was the fastest car.
I believe he's got him this time. Oh, he turned it!
No!
Oh, he turned it! No! No!
Ronnie blocks Bobby Hamilton. Cannot believe it. Contact. Bobby Lamont's over. It's the big wreck on the final lap.
Kyle Busch, he's the winningest driver of the decade, and now he is joining elite company. Kyle Busch is going to win his second Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series championship.
It has been stated by many that the 1992 Winston Cup season is one of the greatest years in NASCAR history. And who can blame their statement? Davey Allison was still alive and a force to be reckoned with. Alan Kulwicki, an underdog who ran his own show, would rise to the top that year and become the series champion, becoming one of the last real old-school owner drivers to do so. Richard Petty started his year-long going-away party to celebrate his last season. And a rookie named Jeff Gordon would get his first start at Cup level driving the number 24 DuPont Chevy. Wrap all that up in what was one of the greatest points battle in NASCAR history at the Hooters 500, and you've got yourself one of the greatest showings in sports. One thing a lot of people fail to remember though is the start of what is now a powerhouse team, Joe Gibbs Racing. And yes, this is the same Joe Gibbs that led the Washington Redskins to 3 Super Bowl titles. If this somehow doesn't sound weird to you, imagine in today's perspective if veteran driver Denny Hamlin and NBA legend Michael Jordan suddenly said they were going to start a team and race in the Cup Series. Oh wait, yeah, to say NFL and NASCAR fans alike were a bit perplexed would be an understatement. But this wasn't no fluke. Joe Gibbs was going all in on the car go left thing. So much so that he wouldn't return to the NFL for the 93 season. He signed big sponsorships with Marriott Hotels and Interstate Batteries, got manufacturer backing by Chevrolet, bought ready-to-race cars and engines from Hendrick Motorsports, and got signed off by NASCAR for his car's number, 18. But obviously he's not going to drive it. Coach Gibbs will need to hire a driver. The question was, who? The late 80s and early 90s was stockpiled with talented drivers. Heck, even some of the backburners could probably outwit the rising stars of today. One of those talents was 1988 Winston Cup champion and NASCAR's most popular driver, Bill Elliott, who, somehow, Joe Gibbs managed to get a hold of to talk about a contract. Once Joe Gibbs told him about the Interstate Battery sponsorship, though, he declined. Elliott would wind up driving for Junior Johnson in 1992. And would be runner-up in that points battle I previously mentioned. Joe had one other driver on his mind though. Second-generation driver, journeyman, and pilot of the number 21 Wood Brothers Ford, Dale Jarrett. So, using his resources, Coach Gibbs got Dale's number and called him up. The exchange was awkward. Gibbs introduced himself and told Jarrett what was going on, to which Dale replied with a laugh. Like everyone else, Dale couldn't believe an NFL coach was going to suddenly start a race team and compete in the Cup Series. Surely this was a prank being pulled by his friends. But Joe scheduled some meetings and told Dale to meet him and the crew in the shop at Huntersville, North Carolina, and talk about contracts and sponsorships. And on August 13th, 1991, the announcement was made. Dale Jarrett would race full-time in the number 18 Interstate Battery Chevy Lumina for Joe Gibbs Racing in 1992.
Redskins football coach Joe Gibbs knows how to win championships. And now Winston Cup driver Dale Jarrett knows how to win races. Together, the two, along with crew chief Jimmy Makar, will team up in an attempt to tackle the tough Winston Cup circuit next season.
I'm going to try and give the guys everything it takes and then cheer for them, and then I'm going to give any suggestions I've got, but I'm always, I hope have enough guts in the end to say, hey, you guys do it your way. I think it'll be Jimmy Makar making decisions about the car, and it'll be Dale driving it, and but I want to be supportive and try and get them everything it can to make them go fast.
I am excited about the things that are happening next year, and there were a lot of surprises even to me about sponsorship on the car. I knew of Interstate Batteries and knew that the NFL may be involved, but they're definitely going to be in a big way. And then Juice Bowl came on as a sponsor, and the Marriott. So we're in pretty good shape with that, and things are really looking good. It just keeps getting better and better each day, and Jimmy is over getting cars and equipment ready to go, and they're getting our building ready. So you know, it's a lot of exciting things happening, and I look forward to working with Joe and everybody next year.
Without that, so how do you? Why am I thinking that I might even go with a football coach that's starting a race team for the first time, and he's going to get all of this equipment from Rick Hendrick, so somebody you're going to be competing against, you know you're not getting the best stuff that they have.
While winning is a tradition with the Skins, he hopes that some Sunday in 1992, Joe Gibbs Racing will take its first ever checkered flag.
So that begs the question, who is Dale Jarrett? Prior to the events leading up to 1991, Dale had his hands in a lot of stuff other than motorsports, mainly boat building and golf. But around the age of 20, he finally got the racing itch. He probably would have gotten it sooner had it not been for Ned Jarrett, his father, who made a promise to his wife that he'd retire from NASCAR after he won 2 championships. He just didn't expect to do that within a 5-year period. It'd take a while, but he'd return to the sport, becoming a commentator for radio and TV broadcasts, which will be important for later. Despite his mother's pleading, Dale's racing career was underway. By the age of 25, he was racing full-time in the late model Sportsman Series, now called the Xfinity Series. His stats for 1982 are an average finish of 14.3, 1 top 5, 14 top 10s, and ended the year 6 in points. Really good start for someone who's been driving a race car for less than 5 years. Only 2 years later, he would make his Cup Series debut at Martinsville, where he would finish 14th. And in 1987, Jarrett would get tapped to replace Tommy Ellis in the number 18 Chevy. 1988 was his big break. NASCAR legend Cale Yarborough announced that he would retire at the end of the year, and asked Dale Jarrett to drive for his team. So in 1989, Jarrett ran full-time in the Cup Series driving the number 29 Hardee's Ford. Dale would score his first 2 top 5s in his Cup Series career, but would go winless. He would finish the year 24th in points. But this would open up another opportunity, a ride in NASCAR's oldest team, the Wood Brothers, replacing Neil Bonnet after a concussion, which would lead to his first Cup Series win in 1991 in Michigan, in an absolute barn burner against Davey Allison.
To the outside, he's going to try this pass again. It got him in trouble earlier. They both slide up the racetrack, and here they come for the white flag. 1 more lap to go, and Allison has a slight advantage on Jarrett as they hit for turn number 1. Daniel Jarrett's car is on the low side. Off the 18 degrees of banking, they go down on 5 degrees of banking, and Dale Jarrett wiggles a little bit as they come out of the second corner. They bump, they touch, they rub, going down the backstretch, side by side, wheel to wheel. It's going to be a photo finish. They touch, coming down through the triangle at the line. Who wins it? I believe Dale Jarrett won it, but it was a photo finish. He didn't win by more than 4 or 5 inches.
Joe Gibbs would officially get their start in the NASCAR Winston Cup Series in the 34th running of the Daytona 500. A monumental race when looked upon in retrospect. It was the first race of the Gen 4 car. It was King Richard's last Daytona 500, so he got the honors to be the Grand Marshal. It would also be A.J. Foyt's last 500, and the young Davey Allison would win his first and only 500 victory. For the JGR 18, however, things were off to a rough start. During the Gatorade 125 qualifying race, Dale Jarrett would crash out, forcing him and his team to resort to the backup car for the 500, during which he would crash out again when collected in the pileup on lap 92.
The inside of number 4, storms into the lead in the back straightaway. Ernie Irvin out of Modesto, California, hits. He's into Elliott, they're sliding, trying to correct, picked them up, into the wall goes Sterling Marlin, and the leaders are all in trouble here. Richard Petty's car getting hit. The number 18 car, that is Dale Jarrett, just sitting there, taking the helmet off. His day is over.
The team would withdraw from the race after the car suffered heavy damage. Dale Jarrett would be scored in P36. The next race in North Carolina would not look kindly upon him either, where he would DNF again. Afterwards, they'd get their act together, finishing just below the top 10 at Richmond and Atlanta before breaking through at Bristol, finishing runner-up to Alan Kulwicki. The rest of the year would be hit or miss. He would get a handful of decent races, but would finish outside of the top 10 21 times and only lead 103 laps. He would finish the year 19th in points with an average finish of 17.8. Mediocre, sure, but this was the team's first year. There's nowhere to go but up. The date is February 14th, 1993. It's the typical Daytona beach weather for late winter. High in the upper 60s and not a drop of rain in sight. The perfect day for something spectacular to happen on the sport's biggest stage. The Super Bowl of NASCAR, you might even say. And nobody, at that moment, at Daytona International Speedway, is better at winning Super Bowls than Coach Gibbs. And little did anyone know, him, Dale Jarrett, and the 18 team were about to shock the world.
The other two cars are nose to tail. Gordon took a look to the inside then.
He's going to try looking again. Here comes Jarrett dipping to the outside as Gordon went to the inside.
Looks like he's going to clear him, getting down in the corner.
Jarrett wants to push him hard into this turn. He wants to push him hard in there. If his car's getting loose, he wants to loosen it up even more.
The closer he can get the bumper to the back of Dale Earnhardt's car, the looser Dale will get. There he comes. It looks like he's driving up under him. Earnhardt's car got loose and slid up the racetrack.
Coming into the tri-oval on the way to the last lap, Jarrett passed 5-time champion Dale Earnhardt for the lead. Despite him qualifying second, Jarrett had only led 6 laps up to that point before crossing the line for the white flag, and the runner-up spot was not going to let him get this win easily. I mean, they don't call him the Intimidator for no reason. What ensued is what the NASCAR world refers to as the Dale and Dale Show. A 2-car battle for the sport's biggest prize, the underdog versus the legend, the young upstart team versus the powerhouse veteran team. And to top it all off, Ned Jarrett, 2-time Cup champion, but most importantly, DJ's father, was in the broadcast booth commentating the whole thing.
Jarrett seeking in, they touch. They come back to the line. White flag, and 1 lap to go. Earnhardt coming back on the outside. Bodine gets into it, Strickland gets into it. This is the finish.
Did we say 5 cars had a shot at it? Get ready, because it's coming to the wire. There's Jarrett in front.
Jarrett pulling back in front. Bodine comes down to the inside. Jeff Bodine, the 86 champion, trying to find some room.
I know he's got to the floorboard. He can't do any more. Come on, take him to the inside. Don't let him get on the inside of you coming around this turn. Here he comes, Earnhardt. It's the Dale and Dale Show. As we come off of turn 4. You know who I'm pulling for. It's Dale Jarrett. Bring her to the inside, Dale. Don't let him get down there. He's going to make it. Dale Jarrett's going to win the Daytona 500. All right. Oh, can you believe it?
Way to go.
Oh, man.
How many people get to participate in 2 Super Bowls? There he goes. He's won the Super Bowl with stock car racing. Joe Gibbs.
Joe Gibbs walking to victory lane at Daytona. He's He's used to hearing hail to the Redskins. Hail to 18 would be appropriate here.
Here he is, getting his red hat on. Come on out, Dale. Here he is. Guys, going to win a fabulous race. Look at the celebration.
They had done it. Not only had they won a race, but they won the magnum opus of crown jewel races in NASCAR. And they also beat the man Dale Earnhardt himself, the sport's most aggressive driver. And the rest of their 93 campaign would be miles better than the previous years. Sure, they wouldn't get any more wins, but they got 13 top 5s and would lead 263 laps, placing them 4th in the standings at the end of the year. At this rate, Joe Gibbs Racing and the 18 team were going to be champions. Heck, they were already championship caliber. 4th place in the standings meant a lot more then than it does now. Surely it wouldn't be too much longer before the Winston Cup trophy was on display at Joe Gibbs Racing.
And we have a crash. Brett Bodine and Dale Jarrett have collided in turn 3.
4 top 5s, 9 top 10s, only 55 laps led, 7 DNFs, and an average finish of 18.7. Abysmal, at least compared to last year. Heck, he didn't even make the whole schedule. He needed a provisional in Daytona 500, and he was unable to qualify for the North Wilkesboro race in October. His only saving grace was a win at the Fall Charlotte race. By then, it was too late to save his season though. He would finish the year 16th in points. Well, what was next? Surely 1995 will be a recovery year. They've proven before they can be competitive, and they're still a new team. Yes, they had a year of mediocrity, but things are looking up, right? Well, in 94, Ernie Irvan, the guy who replaced would-be champion Davey Allison, suffered a horrific crash at a practice session in Michigan. The wreck was so bad, it was in question if he would ever race again. For a while, if he would even survive. While he was in recovery, Kenny Wallace was the placeholder. But the 28 team did not have a driver for 1995. If you've already guessed where this is going, you're right. Dale Jarrett would once again be a replacement for an injured driver, cutting his contract with JGR short to drive for Robert Yates Racing, a decision that would lead the team to eventually adding a car to their race shop, and Dale Jarrett becoming the 1999 Cup Series champion, and starting a marketing campaign that had everybody wanting him to drive the brown truck. If you know, you know.
Will the owner of a white Ford Taurus please race the big brown truck? Will the owner of a white Ford Taurus please race the big brown truck?
So, what was next for Joe Gibbs Racing? Were they done just like that? Well, there wouldn't be a part 2 if that was so, would there?